Hello everybody, I'm John O'Meara, the proud and passionate principal of Yea High School. I do sort of sometimes, I've been on the roadshow in Victoria with Danielle and the crew down there, and I come in as a secondary principal. There's normally some ripper primary schools that appear, and I guess I feel a bit humbled because there's so much wonderful work going on. Jihad's work is quite amazing. I'm using Prezi, so I'm not sure if people are used to it, but we'll zoom around a bit. I'll try not to make you seasick, but you'll be okay. Now, I am mindful of the time, so I'll probably skip through some things, so that's where the seasickness may come in. Okay, so I'm a great believer, in fact, and I think it came through really strongly in the video that you showed before, Jihad, that the culture of a school is probably the key point of its essential being, if you like. And at our school, we had to shape a culture that embraced families, and that was a key part of my work after I figured out how to sort of run the place, which was, you sort of sit in the big chair and go, okay, the buck stops here, what am I going to do? So that's an important part of the role. And I think this is a really nice quote because, if you think you can or you think you can't, you're probably right. And that's pretty much, the mindset is so important. I'm just going to whip through these ones. I won't show you those. We'll scoot off over here. One of the people that I take great inspiration around this work is a bloke called Steve Constantino. I'll talk more about him later, but as you can see in the quote there, if we as educators could do this work, then we probably would have done it. And we'd be all patting ourselves on the back and saying, well, fantastic, Ripper mate, fantastic. But we haven't done that. And in fact, a lot of the earlier work that we saw yesterday and today talks about those overlapping spheres of influence and the fact that we all need to work together to achieve the ultimate outcome, which is to lift the kids' capacity to learn and to have success. So I guess these are the things that came out of my work in the sort of mid-2000s. Things like, do you believe that, in fact, doing the family engagement piece will, in fact, improve student outcomes? If you don't believe that, well, forget about it and do something else. It is possible to engage every family. Every family. That's a hell of a challenge. And reforming what happens outside the classroom is as important as reforming what happens inside. Now, we've talked about that stuff today. In fact, the chaps who were in earlier talked about school being, 8 to 15%. I thought we were doing okay at 20. But, and the guys in the department, this is being videoed, isn't it? But the guys in the department are really ripping that lever about, send it back to the boys in Victoria. But the guys in the department are really pulling that lever of, we want you to be better in the classroom, and there's a whole range of things that sit around that, which is okay. I haven't got a problem with that. I mean, that's part of our job. But I think a part of our job that's ignored and must be embraced is the idea of, well, what are we doing around families? What are we doing around community? And how can we make them part of that much more wholesome model of education that I think really we're calling out for. Now, in terms of my sort of journey through this stuff, I've got three influences. The first one is Joyce over in Baltimore. I had the absolute pleasure of spending some time in Baltimore at the conference, and Joyce is like this sort of lively lady who just zooms around all over the place doing a whole bunch of things. But the thing that I took from that was actually, here is a framework that I can finally hang my hat on. I was actually one of those people that Danielle talked about, the random act guy. We'd sort of do this, we'll do that, and there was no real underpinning sort of thread that pulled it all together. So having Joyce's model kind of helped me a bit to figure that one out. And also this idea of having, in fact, we tie our partnership action team to the governance body, which is the school council. The partnership action team sort of runs the agenda of family engagement in our school. And it sits sort of inside the policy document, which talks about the things that we should be doing, and they keep us honest. And we had a couple of promising practices that we pinched from Joyce, which is interactive home learning, which is a really simple piece, and also Yea TV. It hasn't quite got to where I want it to be, but it's sort of getting there. With Yea TV, the thought is, wouldn't it be nice if you, as a parent, maybe you can't come to school all the time, you're a really busy person, whatever it might be, but wouldn't it be good if you click on the internet, go to the web page and see what the kids have been doing? So, this week it might be science experiments in Year 7. Other times it might be, kids that have been doing video clips on music, and you could actually access those straight off the internet. So that were some early things that we looked at. Now, Steve Constantino, the reason I like this guy is because he's a secondary principal. He was in a really tough jam. I think he was the 5th principal in about 2 years at Stonewall Jackson High School. And he basically turned that school around through family engagement. And so he also talked about, it was the first time I really thought about this as well, organisational culture and what that means in terms of moving your organisation forward. And he also has his 4 domains of engagement, which you can see there. That's sort of developed into this new model, which I've been helping him a bit with, around new global standards. If you want to find out more about that, you can actually Google that, and I think there's some stuff coming out soon. And of course, later on, I managed to go back to the States and look at big picture schools, which their sort of home base is in Providence in Rhode Island. And they have a sort of an interesting structure that actually supports family engagement and also progresses the 21st century learning agenda. We had the good fortune of having Steve Constantino visit Yale High School as part of a broader tour. And the 2 things that he said to me as he left really resonated with me and sort of haunted me at night. In those quiet moments. The first one was, what are you going to do, John, about changing the conversation that families have in their home around learning? How are you going to change the questions that they ask? And the other one was, what sort of structures are you going to put in place to support that? Because the school will have to go out to the families. The families are not going to come to the school. And that was, and I guess the bottom line of that is, if you're going to engage every family, you do need to go the hard yards to the underserviced ones that perhaps aren't that easy to reach. Now, for us, the way forward was, in fact, to look at a few things. So what's going on in our school in relation to family engagement? And we used Constantino's model rather than using Joyce's. And that was really because it just seemed to work a bit better in a secondary setting. And we actually went through using a working party. We did a whole bunch of interviews, we did surveys, we did focus groups, we did a whole range of things. And I must admit, as principal, I was a bit shocked because there were some things I thought we were doing really well, we were no good at. So that was a bit of an eye-opener. On the working party, we had teachers, we had parents, we had kids, we had community members. So it was a very broad range of people who were actually part of that process. We had some small changes that we made, so we sort of made some easy runs. So the interactive home learning was part of that, Yay TV was part of that, and we also made the place a little bit more navigable so that we had welcoming signs and you could kind of find your way around the place if you were a visitor. Before that, you'd struggle a bit to find some places. Now, the other thing that we did was following up with relevant and meaningful PD for staff in particular. Although we also did include kids and parents in that as well. Relevant and meaningful, very, very important. Very, very important. And that sort of builds to a cultural shift. So actually shifted to, yes, we do believe some of those things that were put up earlier. Now, the cultural challenge, I think this is a really good quote. It's sort of getting that transference of what's rattling around in Mr. O'Meara's head to actually being the things that happen in the place, and actually starting to hear some of the things that you've been thinking about actually being said in the corridors. That's really, really exciting for me. We changed a number of things and actually renamed things, and those names started to come out in some of the conversations. So the key levers that we used to move from where we were to where we needed to be were these things here. So what makes the difference? This comes out of a best evidence synthesis, that's very hard to say, an analysis that we had over in New Zealand. And you can see up the top there, parent and teaching interventions were very high. So if you actually worked with parents on a teaching intervention, then you might get some leverage. We're trying to do some of that stuff around numeracy at the moment. There have been interesting things in New Zealand where particular cohorts of kids and particular groups of parents are targeted to try and get that leverage. Teacher-designed interactive homework, we've had a go at that, and that's a very good thing to do. And also this idea of unlocking the family and community funds of knowledge is something that was intriguing. So we've pursued that a bit too. I'll talk about that a bit more later. Now, I also sent teachers, parents and kids off to look at places that were of interest to us. I'll just have a quick swig there. And so I sent a couple of teachers over to the US to have a look at the big picture model. We had people go over to Tassie, we had people over to WA, we looked at some schools in Melbourne as well. And we we sort of also did some reading. So we looked at those books, they're very, very helpful. I can give you the notations if you want to. This one here, the Ethic of Excellence, the little pink one in the middle down the bottom, is an excellent read. It talks about how do you get kids to understand what excellent work is. How can you build high expectations in kids? Absolutely wonderful read, and I'd recommend that to you. Steve Constantino came for a visit, as I mentioned before, and he spoke with all the staff. So some of the doubting Thomases started to go, okay, we're kind of getting it. We had an education summit. So in 08, we actually, after everybody had been out and done their thing, done their professional reading, we all came back and said, okay, what are the things we want to keep? What are the things that interest us from these other places, and what do we think might move us forward? And again, we had parents, we had teachers, we had kids, and some community members come along to that. Coming out of that, we got our Yay 4, so the 4 educational principles that underline the work that we do at Yay are around building relationships. We believe that if you can't get the relationships right, everything else falls over. We need a relevance of curriculum, so stuff that actually kids will connect with and engage with. We believe in rigour and high expectations, if you like, and we need to make sure that the work that kids do is very, very rigorous. And of course, refining and redefining practice. So it's important that we do the classroom stuff well, but we also need to throw some things off the trolley if they're not really working for us. Up here, we changed our structure. So this was sort of the bit that we pinched from the big picture model. We're a big picture inspired school. We can't do the whole pure big picture model, but we take the bits that we think are okay. We restructured around student advisories. We put the kid at the centre. And as you can see, there's a whole range of protective factors that sit around that, chief of which is the family and the advisor. There's also an advisory group. These groups are around about 14 to say 17 kids. And they spend maybe up to half of their curriculum time in their advisory. We've also got the use of mentors and also experts. The distinguishing things here, advisory, that's a key part of the model. We also do individual learning plans with every kid. That's really important. Every kid gets a learning plan. We have student-led conferences and also exhibitions. So 3 times a year we do that. Families are enrolled too. I talk to every family and I tell them what their expectations are in terms of what we want to do and where they fit into that plan, and we start to have that conversation about, well, this is how we go forward. The high expectations, the rigour stuff I talked about before, and we also, as the kids at Punch Bowl, we're very keen on getting out into the community and doing some work out there as well, so the kids understand that they're part of that community and they can actually contribute to it. The advisory promotes the two-way communication. That's really, really important. So within the first 3 weeks of school starting, the teacher advisors will have spoken to every parent within their advisory. What's happening with your kid? How do they learn? What do they really enjoy? Etc. etc. So that sets us up for our learning plan meeting and also for the further contact that we have down the road. So a lot of the contacts now are very positive. Whereas if we sort of tracked our conversations prior to that, they tended to be, your kid's mucked up and you need to come in and, we'll do the paperwork sort of stuff. Okay, how am I going for time, Jacqueline? What have I got, Jihad? Okay, that's good. All right, I might skip through a little bit of this as well. I will show you, there's a... The video I'm about to show you is Jared, who's one of the original advisors. If you listen carefully to the soundtrack, I'm hoping you'll detect the cultural shift from what a teacher might say to what Jared is saying around a whole range of processes and strategies in the school.
How's that going? Yeah, it's going well. At Yale High School, we've been very big on parent engagement, family engagement, and really trying to get families on side. So we've sort of been working on that over the last couple of years. So different things, just like making sure that when we send letters out to parents, it's all personalised. Making sure in our advisories we're calling at least 3 or 4 times a term just to check up on how the student's going. Not always calling with bad news. In the past we've had expos, parent nights where they just come in and just have a chat and have a look at some of the work rather than only coming in to hear what's going wrong. So we've tried to do that a lot in Yale over the last couple of years, and again, so I guess it's been a little bit easier for us with the parents this year, is they're used to that kind of constant contact. And so, I mean, next week I'll go out for a couple of nights. I'll head up to Kinglake for an evening, and I'll probably have about 5 learning plan meetings, and they'll go for about an hour each, where we just sort of sit down with the parents and have a chat about how their students gone in term 1 and what they're planning to do in term 2. So there's lots of things like that. So that'll be one night. Next week there'll be another night as well, probably here at Yale High School. So we're constantly having these meetings and phone calls just to ensure things are going the way we want them. We also had the parents coming into exhibitions, and so the parents didn't just come in and watch their own student exhibit. They came in and celebrated with a group. So we had different sessions. So in session 1 there was 3 different sets of parents watching 3 different exhibitions and having a look at what other students are doing in the class as well. And we found that was really enriching and rewarding for the parents, because they didn't just see what their student had done, they saw a breadth of the work that's occurring, and the students also really appreciated that too, because they had other critical adults that they could bounce off and get ideas from and get support from as well. And I guess that idea, that's a celebration of our work together.
So hopefully you sort of picked up on some of those cultural differences from what a traditional arrangement might be. I probably do. I meant to mention at the start. If you don't know where Yea is, and I'll forgive you if you don't know where it is, it's 100k north of Melbourne. It's on the road to the snow at Mount Buller or Lake Eildon, if you're sort of that way inclined. We look after the western side of Murrumbidgee Shire, which is a fairly big chunk of real estate. A lot of it's forest, or it used to be. It was burned out in 2009. So that actually getting everybody into the same place is a bit difficult sometimes. And as Jared said, sometimes we need to do some outreach work. So he would actually go to Kinglake, which is about 50 k's away, and hold those meetings. I, as principal, not so much of late, but certainly in the early days of this, went out on circuit, as I used to call it. So I'd go to Kinglake and set up in the coffee shop, let people come and see me if they had some issues or whatever it was. In some instances, I had to visit people in their houses, and I've done that as well. So I think that that idea from Steve Constantino of what are you going to do and how are you going to make that effort to do that outreach work is a challenge, and you can't just sit in your plush office, as Jihad said, and just sort of hope that things will be okay. What we're noticing, these are a couple of interesting things. You can read most of that. I've just sort of worked through some figures with the Deputy Principal about our rates of suspension. Since 2005, we started to really get serious about this stuff in 2006. We've found that there's been a 2/3 reduction in students coming to notice for suspension, so that's very, very good. Our other data around ejecting kids from classes is also down, so we would suggest that everybody being on the same page is pretty useful. Okay, I might just move on from that one. That's some school data. I won't show you that one. I might just go a little bit further down the road here. This one here, the approachability of the school, as you can see, back in 06, it was reasonable. But as we go on, we sort of improve. If you ignore 2009, it was a crazy year. We had the impact of the Victorian bushfires quite heavily in our area. We had about 70% of our catchment zone was turned to charcoal. We had one student, unfortunately, who was deceased, and 70 families lost their homes completely and were displaced. So that was a bit of a crazy year. School improvement, you can see also that there's obviously this data is generated from the parent surveys. This is parents' opinions of the school improvement, and you can see that there pretty clearly. And just around the Year 9 program, Year 9 is where we actually did the big picture inspired stuff, did the things that Jared was talking about, so exhibitions and all those sorts of things. And as you can see, and I think that sort of underlines a bit what was said earlier, perhaps by Elaine, about you really do need to have parents involved when kids get big and ugly. That's very important, and you can sort of see here that particularly the family attends the exhibition. Everybody thinks, yeah, that's a good idea. We should have our folks there, and we're very sort of proud of what we're doing. And also around the community project, overwhelmingly, yes, we should be doing that. Okay, and of course, I do like to skite occasionally. So we picked up an award in 2009, so that was a bit of a boost for that year. Okay, now the things that I think might just move things on nicely in terms of a principal and an organisation. Often in the staff room, you can sort of sit around and you can get a bit mopey. These guys are getting in the way, and that's the damn problem, blah blah blah. But I sort of want to turn that around a bit. So I think one of the key things for a principal is what do you stand for as an organisation, and what counts in the place. I like what counts in the school. And they're important questions to kind of ponder. And of course, this stuff here, we started this work back in 2006. We're nowhere near complete in terms of doing it, but we've made a good start. So we've got to be prepared to be persistent and stay the course. In terms of conversations, I think this has been one of the really important parts of our work, where we've promoted people having a forthright and honest conversation. And as Jihad said, sometimes you've got to say, look, this bus is going some other place where you don't want to be. Maybe you need to, get on another bus, and that's okay. And I'll help you get on another bus. Well, some of them maybe. The other thing, that collaboration in secondary schools, I think if you wanted to set up a place that was really isolating, you'd set up a secondary school and you'd run it like a traditional secondary school. Although sometimes I like that. Look, I'm a teaching principal. I teach 5 sessions a week, and I quite like going into my classroom and rolling the door shut and thinking, I'm untouchable now. Leave me alone. I'm going to do my thing. But it is really, well, under one of the regimes we had for Year 7, you could have 13 teachers with one Year 7 kid as they spin by. Well, how are you going to do a relationship, and how are you going to really do all those things that you need to do? So it is a bit of an issue that we need to still look at it and try to get that right. I think this is also something that is really important, that sort of culture of care within a school. Parents pick up on that, and in fact it's one of the motivating factors. There was some interesting research over in the States about why the drift to charter schools, and one of the key reasons was in fact that parents believe that the charter schools would actually care more for their kid than in some of the public schools. And having visited North Penn High School, I can imagine it. 4,000 kids in a massive building. 4,000 kids, for God's sake, this is crazy. And of course, the last bit here, conviviality. So actually, valuing the people that you work with, and also I think a really good example of that is the community meal. I'm going to pinch that idea. Okay, so the conclusion. I might skip that because there's just a couple of videos. The conclusion for me is, this is. I really quite like this work. I think it's fantastic to do. I'm working in a fantastic space with the staff that I have, and they get it, which is really nice. And I think that we are moving forward and helping kids to get better outcomes as a result of all that work. And at that point, I'm going to shut down. People may want to ask us questions, so if you wish to do that, that'd be good. I think we're standing in the way of lunch.
Gail McCarty from Parents Victoria. Thanks, John and Jihad. They were fantastic presentations, and the questions probably I'm going to pose, maybe I need to get the answers in the break because time's limited. But for Jihad, it would be about what jumped out at me was restarting the PNC in a proactive way. That's jumped out, and that's happening in Victoria in a number of spots. I'd like to talk to you about that later. Sure. And John, really interested in some of the characteristics that came up with the surveys, but I noticed in the there was a gap. I don't know what that was about the parent role in governance. It was sort of. Did you notice that? It was blank, and I thought. So I'll talk to you about that later too.
Yeah, that's okay. Can I just say that a lot of people have mentioned that deficit model. We're going to help parents to do whatever. We took some of Joyce's stuff, the sort of parent asset survey, to see what actually, what was out in our community, and we found that very illustrative, and we've actually used that to sort of bring people into work in particular curriculum areas. So there are a lot of good things out there. We just need to figure out how to access those. And I'll have to come back to you on the governance one. I don't know about that.
Yeah, hi, Stephen Frost, and it's probably more for Jihad. As an ex-Punchbowl boy, not Punchbowl High, but through the Punchbowl primary system, and the community's changed so much. I'm just wondering, you mentioned, I think, the primary schools, some interaction. Do you deal much with the feeder primary schools? And then something that's being thrown about is the Year 13s. What's going on beyond Year 12, getting the old boys back to say how they're going?
Oh, well, Steve, thanks for that. Look, it's great to see. It amazes me how many people have either been to Punchbowl or have had a story with it, so we'll catch up at some stage. But we do work with the partner primary schools. One of our colleagues was here a little bit earlier from Wiley Park. To give you an example of something that we're doing, say, with Punchbowl Public next week, which is our namesake. It's literally down the road. Our boys have been working on a bike program. You would have seen the photos of that, where basically what we do is we've been getting broken bikes or bikes that haven't been collected by the police or, beyond repair. Our boys are fixing them and then teaching kids how to ride properly. We're going to be going, I think it's the week after next, our students are going to be teaching the Year 5 and 6 students at Punchbowl Public how to do some bike mechanical work, and it's going to be a 4-week program. We also do, we had some reading programs that we're working out with our local schools. I spoke a lot about the idea of the community. The community also means, the local primary schools. We had with Greenacre, which is up the road. Last year we grabbed their Year 6 students and we ran an 8-week program, 4 weeks in mathematics and 4 weeks in science, because primary schools don't have science labs. So we got them to come down to our school and to be able to undertake experiments that our teachers did. In terms of what happens beyond the school, we've set up our foyer area. Really, it's about building the confidence of the kids and making them aware that many of our old boys have gone on to good things. So we've got this thing called a Friends of Punchbowl Boys High School, and we just take photos of everybody that we know or everybody who we can get into a photo frame with and hang around there, or ex-students, and say this is what they're doing, this is who they are. My dream is to establish, and if you want to help me with it, I'd really appreciate it. I would love to establish like a formalised, almost like an old boys Friends of Punchbowl network. We get a lot of ex-students to come back in. Not Sir David Richmond. David Richmond, who was really heavily responsible for the Sydney 2000 Olympics, was an ex-student. So we got him to come into the school. Steve Folkes, who was the old Bulldogs coach, got him to come to the school. Jeff Tomo was an ex-student. And I'm trying to get Greg Welsh, who was actually the first Australian to win the Ironman in Hawaii, trying to get a hold of him. But I also wanted kids to get the academic aspect. There's one of the justices apparently was an ex-student. So if I could talk to you about that. But that's really important for the kids also to see. It's that idea that, guys, this is, we're aiming up here. We're no longer here. So if we could talk about that, that'd be great. Oh, so the parents?
Yeah, both. I believe in the interaction there, but there's dropout between transition from primary to high, and if it's a junior high to a senior college, but parental engagement.
So one of the ways that we've done parental engagement, I've gone and spoken at some of the different PNCs of the local primary schools, but we also, some of the programs that we've done, like the Olive Tree program that we're doing at the moment, it's like parents who know parents, and we get everybody to come in. So it's not just Punchbowl Boys High School. We allow it to happen at our school, and we let them use our school minibus and all that sort of thing. But I'm happy to have anybody come in from any school to go in there. Probably don't work specifically with parents from primary schools more than that. We have the parent information. I have the Welcome to Year 7 barbecue. It's really important. We think there is a big drop-off of parents when they get to Year 7, and with the kids as well. Parents take all their kids to school in Year 6, but then they get to high school and they kind of almost think, no, they're in big school now, but the kids actually need them just as much, if not more. And we're just trying to make sure the parents keep getting involved. So we work in whatever way we can. Like as I said, it's that idea the door's open, so we never rule anything out. But in terms of, I go and speak at the PNC, and when we have the information sessions, we get the parents and we ring the parents. rather than saying, like, I don't rely on kids to get letters, I don't rely on the internet, I just rely on a phone call, a bit of like a real person. So, you know, we might split it up, me, the deputies, few of the head teachers, we go, look, let's ring 5 people each and just sort of make sure that we get them to come in.
Last one, a very quick one. We're really behind time, so
So this is a question to both of you. When you leave your schools, is it sustainable?
Shall I take that?
You have a go and then I'll have a go, because I did for a while. So
Mine's very easy. I think that the challenge that Steve Constantino put in my lap was, well, you know, what sort of process, what sort of strategy, what sort of structure are you going to put in there? And I think that actually supports the work that we do. Within the culture of the school, everybody understands that the work is central to what we do. So I would suspect that it'd be very hard to break our culture now. But, you know, principals are very key players in this, so I suppose if they've got a really retrograde principal, then that might be a problem. You'd certainly have a revolt on his hand.
look, I actually came and did some work in Canberra last year on the Empowering Local Schools initiative. I was seconded and I was here for about 5.5 months or so. So I missed the winter, which was really fantastic. And so I left the school for a bit, and that was one of my concerns of what's going to happen to the school. Of course, there's a change when you're not there, and if you are, as John, as much as we don't want to say, we're dominant characters within the school, and people rely on you for all sorts of things. But the school didn't fall over while I wasn't there. I was welcomed back, of course. You know, I mean, some of the kids said, "Oh, sir, you've left us." You know, the important thing was to let the people know. For me, it was important to let the kids know and the parents, I'm not going to something better. I don't think there's anything better. So that they didn't feel that I said, I'm just going to do something different for a little bit. And I left for a while and I came back and look, there were a few things that I thought, look, I just need to tighten up some of these areas to take on. There will be, I think I'd feel sorry, I think, for the principal who comes in after John and I, because there is that little bit of comparison in the same way that my predecessor. But everybody has to be a little bit different. You set up certain things. All I would say to the principal who comes in after me is use the power of this community. What works is involving them. You know, but they all bring in their own different things. So I know we won't go back to being what we referred to in the media, and John would feel the same way. And in that sense, we've done it well. But you've also got to pick your time. You don't just walk away whenever you can. You've got to make sure all the ducks are lined up so somebody can continue. I think that's a fair thing to the community. It's not about us. It's actually about what we've set up there. And then our careers will go wherever they go. But I don't know. They think they're going to get a plot for me in the school somewhere. I've said, as long as I get some columns, it's all right.
thanks a lot. Okay, we'll wrap it up there, and thanks a lot, John and Jihad. That was fantastic. I won't do any summation because we're a little bit over time, but I do have a small gift, and Jihad, I hope your daughter approves. Thank you. Okay. I'm going to hand over to Ros Haffey, who's going to introduce the next session. And just quickly, if you need a taxi to get to the airport after the symposium, please see Kate at the registration desk at lunchtime, and if we need to organise a couple of maxi cabs, we'll do that for you. Ros, thank you.
Hi, I'm Rosalind Hayfie from the Queensland Council of P&Cs, or we're going to be known as P&C Queensland from September onwards. I'm here to introduce to you today 2 guest speakers, the first one being Margaret Hunter, and she's going to talk to us about holiday reading and how rad it is. The little bit of information that you may not know about Helen is that she loves playing sim games on her iPad, curled up on her couch, and that's her little way of zoning out. I haven't unfortunately caught up with Russell, and I do apologise for that, but he might perhaps share something with us during his conversation this afternoon. So our first guest speaker is Margaret Hunter.
I'm surprised I shared that little bit of information. My colleagues in New South Wales that I work with don't even know that. I'm sure they'd have a big laugh if they knew that's how I zone out playing the Sims games. But anyway, what I want to do is I want to just give you a little bit of insight into New South Wales and a little bit of insight into the program that I work for. So let's play with this. Okay, so I just want to set the scene. In New South Wales, we have funding programs available to highest concentrations of low SES families. We have 3 programs. We have 580 schools in the Priority Schools Funding Program. We have 101 schools in the Priority Action Schools Program. And we have 552 schools in the Low SES National Partnership Schools, which equates to about 66% of all these schools receive all this funding. So you can imagine that each year some of these schools receive $2 million a year. The program that I work for is the Priority Schools Programs. And the Priority Schools Programs, for some of you who've been around as long as I have, would remember our program as being called the Disadvantaged Schools Program. And then we became the Disadvantaged Schools Component. Then we became the Priority Schools Funding Program. Now that we're the Priority Schools Program, and within that program we have 2 programs, which is the PSFP and the PAS schools. We have been around for over 20 years. I know that our state was the only state that kept an equity program. The other states put all their funding into a literacy and numeracy bucket and they divvied it out that way. What happens after this year, we're not quite sure. We have a new government and we're pretty sure we're going to go through another restructure. So we'll just wait and see. And as I said earlier, we've got 580 priority schools and 20% of the students within our schools are in our government schools in New South Wales. Our focus is on literacy, numeracy and participation. And we also work within 3 action areas. And I won't read the PowerPoint, but the action areas are interrelated. So what happens within our priority schools funding, priority schools, is that they must have something in their school plans within each of those action areas. So if a school's looking at their direction in the area of literacy, and it could be the reading area, then they need to be doing something with the parent and community engagement around reading. So it needs to be interrelated into their school plan. We don't like to see parent engagement being an add-on, or we'll have a parent meeting and that'll do for the rest of the year. It has to be related to everything that the teachers are doing as well. Okay, the Holiday Reading as RAB program came about in 2002. And the reason it came about, because the research was showing that 25% of students from low SES communities lose their reading skills over that long 6-week break. And we were getting some feedback from teachers within our schools that their pre and post testing, the reading skills were great at the end of the year, and when the kids came back into school the following year, their reading skills had dropped dramatically. So this is why this program came about. The aim of the Holiday Reading program is to encourage adults to read with their children over that long 6-week break. And it doesn't have to be a mother or a father, it can be their siblings, grandparents. It's just to encourage that reading over the 6-week break. I will say that, and I'll get into what the kits, what is involved in the kits, but a lot of our schools, for specific purposes, they prefer to do the program over a 2-week break. So we're getting this evaluation that keeps coming in that some schools prefer the 2-week break because the kids don't forget about the diaries and that, and they're back into schools quicker than doing it the 6-week break. But at the moment, it's still in the 6 weeks long Christmas break, but we are looking at re-evaluating how we might run it next year. Why the program is so successful is the kids see this as not school reading. And I think that we've found a lot of our kids, when they go onto their holidays, they don't want to do any reading because it's school stuff. And we're trying to encourage them and the families that reading is all around us, and it doesn't have to be strictly within a school environment. It can be in a home environment, it can be a shopping environment, you can go on holidays. So we're trying to encourage there are different reading areas and strategies. It doesn't have to be from a school book, and it doesn't have to be from a physical book in the home as well. And the fact that it's fun. We're trying to make reading for our kids in our schools that it is a fun thing to do. I'll just show that cartoon. I like that cartoon because it actually says the story of what the holiday reading is all about. It's cool. The name came about, Holiday Reading is Rad, because we were trying to appeal to the young kids. The program is a K to 6 program, but this year, the last 6-week break, we trialled a K to 5 program. The reason we trialled the K to 5 program is the fact that the year 6, they go into high school, we can't get that data from the high schools. So we've made it a K to 5 just for this year. It worked pretty well. The evaluations are still really up there. But yeah, we need to figure out a way that we can get the data from the year 6 kids who've moved into year 7. So what do the kids receive? You can see that there's an orange kit there. It's a backpack. They receive their diaries, and the diary itself is that we like them to put down what they read every day, how long they read every day with their families or their siblings. They get stickers, they get a bookmark, they get magazines, they get a pencil with a rubber on it. They get, the parents receive a pamphlet with a whole pile of different strategies that they can use when it comes to reading at home with their children. It's not just sitting down reading a book. We have numerous magazines, and the magazines are tailored for specific years. Now I'll just try and get in here. No. Does this go into internet or not? You just need to tap on that.
This one you did.
Yeah, well, it goes into the whole lot anyway.
Make that large for you there. And when you want to see a little tap.
Yeah,
back to that.
okay, great. I don't know how many of you know about our website. Our website, the address is www.lowsesschools.nsw.edu.au. At the moment, we're in the middle of putting together a new website, new and improved with the times. But I just wanted to show you on this. God, this is sensitive. We have a Holiday Reading is Rad page, and you can't see the full extent of this, but we have sections on that page for students, parents and teachers. So in the students section, there are competitions that they can get into over the school break, and the competitions are sponsored by, promoted by our sponsors. We have a whole pile of information and ideas on the parent page. On the teachers page is pre and post evaluation ideas. There are also student attitude surveys as well, pre and post. Over the right-hand side there, we've got the new evaluation highlights for the 2011-2012. We also put together certificates for the kids at the end of the 6-week break who have completed the program. I would say that the program is optional, so we send out the information to all our schools. If they want to opt into it, they can. This year we had just mention this. The pilot in 2002 was with 9 schools. That was the first year we did it. And what we did with the 9 schools after the program ran, we did surveys and focus groups of how we might be able to improve it and make it better for to put out to the wider community. Since 2002, we've had 1,500, there should be 15,000 students. Oh no, 1,500 in 12 primary schools, 150,000 students since 2002, which is 580 lower SES schools. So it has been very, very successful within New South Wales. So this year, the 2011-2012 evaluation highlights, we had over 15,000 students from 198 lower SES schools that took part in it. 26% improved and 63% maintained their reading skills over that 6-week break. We have in-kind sponsorship of 110,000 magazines, and that's approximately $666,000 worth. The magazines are things like DMag, K-Zone, Wiggles, all the magazines that the kids like. And there are a lot of the magazines are very expensive, and the parents have actually, some of the evaluations that have come through have appreciated them because their kids actually would like to have those magazines, but the parents can't afford to buy them. So the parents of some of the comments have been, it's like Christmas, you know, these magazines in our home, the kids love the packs. So it's been successful with the parents at home as well. This year we had 30 prizes, and how those prizes are given out is that we have competitions in the student diaries that they can enter into. They either enter online or they can post it in. And we had competitions for the 3 stages of schooling, and they receive subscriptions. And also they get their names into the next magazine that comes out the following in February, that they won this prize and their story or whatever they did with the competition. Some of the comments are there. I'm trying to give Russell as much time as possible because we've been running late. That's just one success story. One of the things that we've found with the evaluations is we're trying to get teachers to use the pre and post testing around the syllabus outcomes when it comes to reading. But we're finding more, every year we've got the optional assessment tool that we've put together. They don't even have to put it together themselves, which is from the syllabus outcomes, but they prefer to use the reading levels. We believe that the pre and post testing that the teachers have to do with the students that take part in the program, they should be already doing. It shouldn't be another a thing that they have to do.